Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My guest today is usually the one who does the interviews, but today I invited my fellow YouTuber, Jana from Purl Together, to be my guest. Hi, Jana.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so I love watching your channel, and basically preparing for this interview, I went back to the very first episode.
Oh,
And I
dear.
was trying to, so I was trying, like, because I'm a newer YouTuber, right? It's all sort of, I'm trying to figure out my ways around.
Yeah.
And so when I look at your YouTube channel, I see that you've tried different kinds of things, sort of feeling your way around and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Sure.
So you started with like just knitting tutorials, and then you start inviting people over, and then you started doing knit alongs, and then it grew into retreats.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, was that planned from the beginning? Didn't you see this vision like when you started the channel?
No, not really. My purpose in starting the channel was that I thought it would be fun to create that community. And I live in the middle of nowhere. Like, I don't have a local knit store. I mean, I've said that several times on the channel. It's the middle of nowhere, literally middle of nowhere, Wyoming. I don't have neighbors. I'm 25 miles from the nearest town, which is very small. Yeah. So my point in starting the it was kind of the YouTube channel and the Facebook group kind of at the same time. And my purpose in doing that was just to be able to have a knitting community for myself, really. But then it kind of just evolved into these things. And I remember the first designer interview, the first kind of podcast interview that I did was with Sarah Shira. And she was gracious and helped, agree to do that. And she was so kind to take time to do that. And I was like, well, that's kind of fun, to chat with people that are across, and thankfully technology allows us to do that. Like, you're in Massachusetts, So it was really just the wanting that sense of community for myself. And then it just kind of has evolved into this thing with the knit along patterns and the podcasts and the retreats. By the way, we're about to have a retreat. So
Nice. So it's coming like September, right?
The first weekend in October, September 29th through October 2nd. I'll send you the link.
Yeah.
So if people want to sign up, they can go and check it out. So,
well, okay, so before we continue into your YouTube journey and things you learn and how you became such a professional interviewer, tell me about your knitting. Like, how did you learn how to knit?
It's kind of, I've said this before, I don't actually remember learning to knit. It's kind of like, I don't really remember learning to read. I don't remember the difficulty of sounding out the words. I mean, kind of I do, but I think my grandmother taught me, and my mother together when I was little. I was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8. And I kind of remember learning just, like a basic dishcloth or scarf or something, but I wasn't really into it until my 20s. And then I kind of like full on got into it. And, but things come and go kind of, my kids were little. I didn't even have kids until I was in my 30s. And so I knitted quite a bit in my 20s. But I really got into it in the last, say, 15 years, like,
well,
obsessively.
Right. We all know how it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's one thing when you knit for yourself, for your kids, for your loved ones, friends. Yeah. It's a whole other animal when you go on YouTube and you start doing knitting tutorials, right? Like, did you question yourself? Did you have any doubts about doing that?
Every day. All the time. I mean, I think in our culture, social media is scary if you're a creator. And we always have critics. We always have that, one person that leaves a nasty comment, or they're just not very kind. And it's difficult to brush that off and go on. But you have to just like have a little bit thicker skin and realize that, 9 out of 10 comments are people that are happy, that are nice, people that are kind. Knitters are really kind people. Honestly, they are, I think. And occasionally there's one that's a little crabby, but that's all right. But it is scary. But what I joke about, which is kind of a joke, but actually true, is I started doing this because I wanted to be able to spend my time watching Netflix and knitting. And how could I translate that into a part-time hustle? A part-time, not a hustle, but a part-time like income producing activity. So my goal was just to be able to like Netflix and knit.
I mean, is it ever that simple living on the farm with like kids, husband, animals, all the stuff that goes on?
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's a lot of fun too. And then, you know, like you have supporters and subscribers. By the way, I'm reminding you to tell people to subscribe.
Thank you.
Subscribe to Fiberchats. Hit the button. Oh, and the little bell thingy that goes when you have a new, do that. But I also have, you know, my Patreon page, which helps too, because people like to see a life that's different than theirs. You know, people that live in the city, for example, they're like, what? How do you milk a goat? So, or I got chickens or the garden, and it's kind of interesting to see how things are. That's a lifestyle entirely different from your own. And so that's one thing that I share with patrons is kind of the more in-depth stuff, like, you know, here's what we're doing this week and on the farm, or occasionally I'll make patron exclusive videos for that reason. And it's, you know, it's fun because I don't have that community necessarily here, but I do have that with my patrons, you know, and then a lot of times I get to see them in real life when they come to a retreat, and that's super fun. Yeah.
I mean, do you ever feel like I'm putting myself out there, like I'm letting these people into my life, I'm showing them my home, I'm showing them my kitten drinking my goat's milk?
Yeah, I mean, I'm careful about what I share, and there's things that certainly are private, you know, that is nobody's business. And, you know, there's stuff that goes on like with anyone's life in your family and your relationships that maybe other family members don't want to be on camera, or they don't want to be a part of that. And that's totally fine. And that's, you know, that's where we as video creators, we have the power of editing, right? We can share what we want or what we choose to, you know, that you're, whatever you're comfortable with. So yeah, I mean, I'm careful about that, certainly, just like you are, I bet. You know, we're all, as creators, we all have to be careful about what we're willing to, how in-depth do we want to be, you know, and that's just a personal choice depending on the topic, you know.
You're putting out a lot of content. Do you ever feel that you are tired, that you like spend hours editing a video and then it doesn't get any amount of views, or you get some negative comments? Like, do you ever feel like enough, like I want to just quit it and do something else?
I haven't reached that point yet, but I definitely have to have a break once in a while. I think that we all need a break. You know, we have to pace ourselves. And if there's critics, okay, I'm going to tell you, and you can keep this or not, but I was recently introduced to Brene Brown, and she's amazing. And I guess I was just behind the times because I hadn't watched like her TED Talks and stuff before. But a big thing for her is she talks a lot about daring greatly. She talks a lot about Theodore Roosevelt's speech in 1910, where he talks about the man in the arena, and all the people in the audience, you know, they're throwing tomatoes or whatever, and they're critical, and he's having a difficult time, and he's down on the ground with his face in the dirt, and, you know, people are critical. And I'm like, well, one thing she says about that is, unless it's you in the arena with me, I don't really care what your opinion is. That's true to a point. I care about what viewers think because they're my audience, right? And I care, but on the other hand, if there's just one person out there being snarky, maybe they're having a bad day, and that's okay. I can brush that off and go on. When 99% of the people are really kind, and knitters are a wonderful group of people, I've found, at least here in this part of this country. You know, I don't have any experience in big cities. I really don't. But I think that knitters overall, the people that are watching your content, they want to be there because they like your podcast, or they like what you're teaching, or they like the knit along. And, you know, there's plenty of stuff on YouTube. They can keep on scrolling if they don't like it.
Well, how do you decide what you're going to post? Like, how do you divide it for yourself?
I'm not that organized. I'm really not. A lot of times when we decide like what we're going to do for the next knit along, it's a lot of time it's the patrons that have input. That's one of the perks of being a patron, is that they help get to decide what we're going to do next. And that's fun, you know. So, or maybe it's just what I want to knit next. And I figure, well, I mean, if I want to knit it, there's probably other people out there that would like it too.
So let
But
me ask you about knit along, because I ran a few knit alongs in some of the Facebook groups. And what I found that there is a lot of excitement at the very beginning of the knit along, because everybody is like, it's a new pattern, it's some interesting yarn choices, everybody is enthusiastic, people start knitting, but like some people concentrate exclusively on that, some people knit 10 other things, some people have very busy lives, and some people like me can knit like 8 hours a day, right? So if I get to the end of that knit along before vast majority of my followers or people who participate, I feel like, okay, like, should I knit another one of the same things? Should I pace myself? Should I only allow myself 15 minutes a day? Like, how do you decide how fast you're gonna go?
For me, the schedule of a knit along is driven by the tutorial content. And so for me, it's like the sweater knit along that by the time this airs, we will have just finished it. I'll kind of map out for myself like how it's going to work for me to film the tutorials and how it's going to work for me to upload those videos and how long I think the average beginner-ish intermediate knitter might need to knit through a section. See? And so I always have lots of other projects going on. So, you know, and as you know, it takes a while to make a video, like film it while you're knitting it, then edit that, and then knit through the next section while you're filming the technique and going slow enough to explain, you know, so that all takes a while. But I've also got, you know, 18 other things on the needle. Oh, well, no, that's not really exaggerating. I have a big pile of whips because that's how I am. I'm not very organized, but I will try to map out kind of a loose schedule, knowing that things will change depending on the weather and the farm and the family and all the other things. And people are really understanding about that. But if I have followers or I have knitters that are like you and they've busted through it and they don't need my help and they want to just get through it and be done, that's okay. That's not really a knit along, it's kind of a knit ahead. but that's okay, you know, because if they're enjoying it and they're doing their thing, then that's fine.
Well, you have like few different types of videos. So you do tutorials where you like break down parts of the knit along and you explain the details, let's say like how to attach the heel of the sock or something like that. Yeah. And then you have the interviews, and then you have your videos, which I want to talk about, sort of like, are they knit worthy videos? So when you do those videos, like, do you have a favorite kind? Like, do you prefer one sort of videos over another? And the second part of the same question, when you on the camera showing a tutorial, right? It's you against the camera. When you have an interview, you chatting with another person out there. Do you find like one of those easier than another?
Okay, that's really hard. You're good at this. That's all. I gotta think for a second. You're putting me on the spot here a minute. I like both types of content for different reasons. I find it empowering that I can help people. I like doing the tutorials and then having people having that feedback that says, oh, I've never been able to knit a sock before. Now I can. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, I like sharing that. I like empowering other people to try to expand, you know, what they can knit and what they're learning, because I think learning is super important. You know, I mean, you got to keep moving forward, and learning helps that. And it's empowering for me and for other people to, you know, to have that person that maybe has never been able to do socks before. And now all of a sudden they've experienced the magic of turning a heel. I think it's magical. It's very logical. It's not really magic, but it feels magic, right? Feels like that because Shazam, it fits. So I think that's really empowering, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that for myself and for other people when I get that feedback of, yay, I was able to do it. And then they're sharing their work in our group, and everybody's happy about it. I really like meeting other knitters and other people that are, you know, they don't live in the middle of nowhere, and they have that different life experience in doing those interviews and meeting designers and being exposed to other people that I would have never known about and never found, you know. That's why, I mean, the power of social media, it's amazing. I just discovered a new yarn dyer in Wyoming. that I didn't know about. And now, right? It's fantastic.
That totally happened to me. Like lately, I interviewed these two girls who are like big on TikTok. They crocheters. And when they were preparing for the interview, they went and they looked through my other interviews, and they found a yarn dyer who lives 40 minutes away, and now they're best friends, and they like collaborating.
Oh, that's amazing. See, you were like matchmaker.
Yeah,
that's great. That's great. I know that's not a concrete answer. I like different types of series and videos for different reasons. You know,
and it's just like I find personally, when I talk to somebody else, it's easier for me.
Yeah.
To talk to somebody else for an hour is easier for me than to record myself talking about myself or something that's happening on my channel for 2 minutes. Like it takes me much longer to video it and to edit it than to talk to somebody else. Real, I don't know why. Like when it's me against the camera, suddenly it's deer in the headlights.
You know why I think that is because I think we're more, and this is one of those self-development things that I'm totally working on, but I think sometimes maybe that's harder because I tend to be more critical of myself. And so when I'm only hearing myself talking and I don't have that feedback from someone else, I think I'm more critical and I'm editing more critically than maybe I would otherwise. And I think that just takes time to get over, because the first few videos, you said you look back and it's like, it's easier for me now, several years in, than it certainly was in the beginning, because now I'm to the place in my life, and maybe that's just because I'm in my 50s too, where I'm like, I'm just going to talking to myself. And if people don't like it, then they can go. I mean, they keep scrolling, do your thing. Right.
Well, you have 2 teenage children.
Yeah.
How do they view you? Like mom is YouTuber, mom is on Instagram, like mom is on Facebook, mom is running retreats and knit-alongs. Like, are you like the coolest mom in the neighborhood?
No. No. Okay, what's funny though is my oldest was at university. You know, she just finished her first year, and so she had some friends in her dorm that wanted to learn to knit, and she's like, oh yeah, my mom has a YouTube channel. And they're like, what? She just like gave them the links, and so that freaked me out a little bit. But there's a lot of things. I mean, I have my little corner of social media, my little corner of the world, you know, and I've been doing this since they were younger. And so to them, it's just kind of normal, I think, you know. Sometimes their teachers are like, what? Your mom's on YouTube?
Well, I mean, you mentioned that like you meeting some of the people that you met through YouTube or Instagram in real life.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first like celebrity moment when somebody recognized you?
No, I think that's only happened once or twice. Yeah, because Wyoming's full of farmers and ranchers and not as many knitters. So it's only really happened once or twice that I was actually recognized. When I've been able to meet people like my patrons, it's been at an event that I've organized, you know, like at a retreat, and I'm expecting them to show up. You know, it's only happened one time where I was out like at a estate sale. I was at an auction, and somebody came up to me and said, are you Jana? And I turned around and I'm like,
who's asking?
Do I know you? And they're like, yeah, I saw your channel. I'm like, oh, okay. And it freaked me out a little. It did, honestly. Because I'm used to just going about my life with all the farmers and ranchers, and like, you know, they don't care. Right.
Well, tell me about like, how is YouTube for you different from, because you mentioned that you started Facebook group at the same time approximately.
Yeah,
How is it different? Like, how do you split your time between like social media and YouTube?
I have in my Facebook group, I have a few moderators that are fantastic that help me, because I have rules in my group. I do. They're simple and they're pretty straightforward, but like, as you know, once you get a larger group, like things can go haywire.
Right.
And so we have a few rules just to keep things running smoothly, so that I don't need a ton of help, so that I can manage most of it with, you know, like there's 3 of us, right, that are active in the group. And so if you, as you know, if you have several thousand people in a Facebook group and you have no content moderation, things can go south kind of quickly. So we kind of keep a lid on that. We do have some rules, but that's what helps things, you know, go more smoothly, in my opinion. So, and that's okay, because if people don't care for that, if they don't care for those rules, like, that's all right. There's lots of other places, like Knitter's Gonna Knit. There's no rules.
Well, we still have rules, but they like very mild rules. They just don't prohibit self-promotion.
Right.
We still have like the number one rule there is be nice, you know, like
exactly. Like, we don't put up with anything like not nice.
Right.
So yeah. And I think you know, I spend a lot of time moderating that group, but I also spend a lot of time obviously on the channel moderating comments. And I try to read, that takes some time, because I really do try to read it all. I really do try to, I mean, of course there's stuff I miss once in a while, or if I'm on vacation, I don't go back and read 100 comments. Well, I do on the channel, but not in the Facebook group. I just can't, you know, but I have moderators that help me in there. So I think that's the big difference too, is that I really do try to read every comment on my videos, for sure. I think it's important. That's how you build community, you know.
What did your subscribers teach you in these 4 years that you've been doing it?
They help. I think, that's kind of a hard question. I think they teach us, well, they help with knowing what content is what they want, you know, what people are liking, what people are rewatching, what people are, when you go back and look at your most viewed videos, it's very clear what mine are, you know, and what people like the podcast, people like the chatting, but equally people like the tutorials, people like sock videos. Socks are what people want to knit. Now, that's not always true. Like, it depends in the summer, because, you know, you don't have big sweaters, but people will click on, people will subscribe, people will become patrons for content that they like, you know. And so that's,
I mean, that stresses you, because like sometimes, okay, let me tell you my story, right?
yeah,
I have 160 interviews. One of those people is Steven West. Yeah. His interview obviously got most views. So as a content provider, I can make a choice and only go after very famous people. And that's going to bring the views, that's going to make my analytics look better, that's going to make the YouTube channel more successful. Or I can go after what the premise of my channel, which is to create a library of talent and to show different talented fiber artists from all over the world. So some of them don't have big following and some of them are not very well known, but I find them very interesting, right? Do you let your analytics ever sway you from what you think you want to show?
No, because and the reason I immediately, it's like, nope, because I think we have to be authentic. I think you have to stay with your mission statement, which is that library of people that are interesting to you, and that, you know, we're not all Steven West. I'm not Steven West. I'm not, I mean, in the YouTube land, you know, having a handful of, I mean, my channel is a drop in the bucket, you know, compared to lots of other channels that have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Obviously, I'm not Steven West. I'm not Arne and Carlos. I'm not the Grocery Girls. I'm not any of the people that, you know, have hundreds and thousands of followers. I mean, my subscribership is up in the bucket compared to Stacey Perry at Very Pink Knits. She's amazing. You know, some people, I mean, I'm not Stacey. I don't have the fingernails. And I mean, she has very good tutorial videos. I also do tutorial videos, but the internet's a huge place. There's plenty of room for everybody, really. So I'm not, when I look at my analytics, I don't let that drive what content. Look at it for, oh, that's interesting. That's the highest viewed video. That's what people are interested right now. So maybe I'll consider making something else in a similar way. So like, consistently, some of my highest viewed videos are how to knit socks. So I might consider in the future, what I want to teach another sock technique, but I'm not going to change who I am, and I'm not going to change how I go about things, but it might influence like what other topics that I do. Does that make sense?
Yes. And yeah, I have to tell you, so I've been knitting a lot of things, and some of them were even difficult things. Socks terrified me. Like I had the sock
Oh.
phobia. And watching your videos actually like very empowering, because I was like, okay, she broke it down into little pieces. Everybody can do it. There is nothing difficult about it. It's totally doable. So I love that about your videos, because I feel like you make it sound fun. You show how it's all very doable, how it's not a big deal. So I love that.
Thank you. I mean, it really truly is one stitch at a time. It is, you know.
So when it
And
comes
so,
to your knitting, right?
yeah.
I mean, when you show your tutorials, you break it down like part by part, you show like different steps. What's your approach to learning? Like, do you like to challenge yourself? Do you go through Stacy's pink knits and learn how she does it? Like, how were you learning when you were like 20s, when you got into it?
Well, YouTube wasn't a thing when I was in my 20s.
Right.
So I think there were books, but I'm trying to figure how I want to say this without sounding like an ass. I'm pretty competent. I'm relatively good at reading directions and being able to visualize something. And I don't mean to sound like an ass. I don't mean to sound like, conceited at all, but I have that ability. Now, not always, don't get me wrong. If a pattern is written poorly and I'm like, what? But usually I can kind of read the pattern and I can see it in my mind like a movie, what's going to happen. And I can try to, and I think that's what helps me be able to translate that and explain it in a tutorial. When I was first learning, like, I don't know, how to knit colorwork or how to knit cables, it was just books. It was like the Vogue knitting book or books from the library, or the town where I lived at the time, when I didn't even have a knit shop. When I first started, I lived in Oregon. I lived on the coast. When I first started really getting back into knitting seriously, it was just books and patterns that I felt were written well. And then you're like, it kind of clicks,
What
So
attracts you like in a pattern? Like now when you decide on what you're gonna add to those 18 whips, right? What would make the list? Like, are you going for technique? Are you going for certain design that you haven't seen before, for practicality of it?
That's a really good question. It kind of just depends on my mood, honestly, and what I need at the time. Like right now I need sweaters that I like, because I don't really have a lot of handmade sweaters that I like, that are lightweight, that I can wear in the house. I mean, I have some sweaters that are like really bulky, like you would wear them outside, and it's more of almost like an outer layer. And wraps, here's the thing with shawls, I enjoy knitting them. I really like knitting them, both for the meditative back and forth thing of a good garter stitch section, but also the technique. Like that shawl behind you is just, it's beautiful. It's amazing. By the way, what is that? Tell me what that is.
So this is Fasta Diva shawl, and it was the very first design of my dear friend David van de Kamp. And I actually convinced him that he should become a designer, because at that point he was just knitting it. And I was like, when are you publishing it? And he was like, I wasn't planning to. So I helped him to find test knitters and tech editor, and test knitted it myself.
That's lovely.
He became a designer with like multiple designs now, and we are running Knitters Gonna Knit Together. This is the group that organized.
That's fantastic. So I would enjoy knitting that. I would love to knit that, because I enjoy the technique and the, all of that. I love knitting the wraps and the shawls, but I don't tend to wear them very often because of my lifestyle and so I'm more into sweaters at the moment. Right. Always I'm knitting socks. I do have a wrap that it's going to be a challenge. It is technically difficult. And I tried it once and I ripped it out, and now I have a little bit of I kind of want to conquer it,
Well, you mentioned that you're not very planned and organized. Are you very organized with your whips? Because my problem with having multiple work in project is I stop and I'm horrible at taking notes. Like people who know me well know that Ravelry and me are like, I'll put pictures, but like writing notes is just not my least favorite thing ever. So I would come back to a project like a few weeks later, or a few days later, or even an hour later. I'm like, okay, where was I?
Yeah.
Are you very organized with your notes?
No. I have an issue with Post-it notes. However, I'm improving with that. I have for the last several years started a bullet journal. I love the bullet journal. So I have my notebook and and so often I'll make a project page just for myself in my notebook, not on Ravelry necessarily, but I'll write down, like if I'm knitting, okay, like I just finished sock number 1. So I just finished this sock. I'm behind. This is from Lauren at Her Girl and Her Wool. This is her DK sock with the contrasting. This was from her May sock club. And I just finished this, but I had to re-knit it because the first time I did it, it didn't fit the person very well. And I actually ripped back and then started increasing. So I needed to keep track of like, how many rows am I going to knit? Then I do an increase, then I knit how many more rows, and I do an increase so that I can make number 2 to match, right? So I'll write that in my bullet journal on that specific page. And then if you know anything about bullet journaling, you really ought to put it in your index so you can go back and find it. So I am getting better about that. Because often if I'm knitting, you know, if I'm sitting in the living room and we're watching a show with the family, I don't have my laptop with me. I'm not going to pull up Ravelry and start typing all that. I'll just like write a little Post-it note, you know. So I am getting better about that. And I think what helps also is learning to read your knitting so that if you do set down a project and then you come back here so you can tell where you are. And I try to talk about that in my tutorial videos because we all get interrupted. We all set things down, you know, and then maybe you don't get back to it until 3 days later. And then you need to be able to see what is happening and where you are. So I talk about that a lot, reading your knitting. I speak about that in my videos quite often because it happens to all of us, you know.
Is there like any technique out there that intimidates you, like socks did me?
I wouldn't say intimidates. There's lots of things I want to learn. I don't think I'm intimidated by very much. There's lots of things that I don't know about. Like I don't know how to design a sweater from scratch without a pattern to fit a certain body shape. You know, like I don't know how to do that. I'm not intimidated by it. I just haven't gone through the process of understanding that construction and how, you know, I mean, I get the construction of like a raglan and how that works, but I'm saying, you know, like Elizabeth Zimmerman's percentage system, like I've never learned that, you know. I haven't, there's lots of things that's why I love knitting. There's so much to learn, right? There's so much.
I feel like it's like part of it is like super exciting because you know how like you have lifetime or a few of those of learning ahead of you, right? But on the other hand, it's sort of disheartening because I feel like I started knitting 5 years ago and I feel like I wasted so much time not knitting that I have to catch up for all those lost years. Yeah.
But you have, like you said, you have time to knit, you know, if it's what you're doing for your hobby as well as your income, you have time to do that and you have time to enjoy what you're passionate about. And that's what I'm thankful for, you know, is that we have this little corner of our world where we have a little bit of an income from it. I mean, YouTube is not a get rich quick kind of thing. Absolutely not. I mean, you're lucky if you see a couple $100 a month,
Right.
But you know, and it's a long process. I mean, nobody does it for the money, but because you love it.
YouTube is not definitely the money-making proposition. I watched your video when you were talking about like people being knit worthy and holiday knitting. Like you have few of those videos.
Yeah.
And it's almost like when I told you that your sock videos were empowering because like you show it step by step. I find those videos also empowering in a sense that they give you permission to see that it's not your responsibility to knit for every single person around you. Do people, because you're such a passionate knitter, because you have YouTube channel, do people often ask you for gifts? Do people assume that you're just enjoying it anyway? Why won't you knit me?
No, they don't. Which is which is interesting because the people, well, people in my family, I mean, you know, I'm knitting for them because they appreciate it, because they will care for it, because they'll hand wash their socks or bring them to me. And my mother, of course, you know, she is all about it. She's a knitter as well. So she knows. There's other people in my family, both my immediate family and my extended family, that they're just not that interested, and that's okay. That's totally fine. It's not their thing. So I don't knit for them anymore, because I went through this time in my life where I thought, okay, this is my thing. I just love it. I want to do it for everybody. And what would you like? And what would you like? But maybe they don't. Maybe it's not their thing, and maybe they don't want that. But I'm like imposing that upon them because that's what I like. But then they're like, thanks. It's not their thing.
So now that you knit, like, how much of it is for you, and like what happens to all the stuff that you knit?
Well, that's a problem. That's a problem. One time I still am working that out, because sometimes I'll make a shawl or I'll make a wrap for the channel because I enjoy the process. I think in some ways I'm more of a process knitter than an end product knitter, because I have all these wraps that I've thoroughly enjoyed making, but I don't ever wear them. So I don't know. Sometimes they just sit in a drawer. Sometimes I'll throw one on when I'm going to do an interview like this. But I don't know. One time I had more than one, because I knitted one for myself and I knitted one for a class. And then I did a giveaway. Right. And I figure if people are interested in it, they can enter the giveaway. Then they're showing that they'd really like to have it, and I'm not pushing it off on someone.
Somebody like years from now found one item you made. Which item would you want them to find?
Oh, geez. That's hard. Oh man, you have good questions. Do you have a list, or did you just come up with this?
I never write questions down.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I ever am able to make the shawl that I was telling you about was really very challenging, if I ever get done with it, that's what I want them to find.
Oh, now I'm like so curious what shawl.
Okay, I'll tell you. It's the Morvark, Morvarch.
I'll have to look it up. So what's so challenging about it?
I'm trying to think of the designer's name. Let's see. Let me see. Oh, Lucy Haig. Okay, it's the Morvark by Lucy Haig. Okay, look at that. Look at that.
It's so cables, basically. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Well, you start it in the center and you knit round and round, and some of it's very challenging. Yes, it is just cables, but on the other hand, it's not. And I can't even go. I mean, I understand the pattern, but it's just a super challenging pattern. Technically, it's challenging to keep on track. Like, it's not Netflix knitting. You can't just, no. So you knit it from the center, and you knit it from the center out, and it becomes this diamond. And then you have a way that you have a provisional cast on, and then you knit from that diamond out like this. Yeah.
If you were a designer, like, would you do patterns like this? Like, if you were to put out your designs, like, do you think you would just take some easy Netflix knitting kind of patterns, like socks or something, like relaxing shawl, garter style shawl, or would you do something like that? Like,
I think this is going to sound like a cop-out. I think there's value in both. I really enjoy a challenge like this, and I absolutely will conquer this, because what happened the first time is I made it all the way. I had done the whole center diamond. My mistake, totally my own fault. I left it on my desk, and one of the cats, and it had a big snag, and I couldn't repair it, and I couldn't fix it, and I had to tear it out. And I haven't had the heart to restart yet.
I don't know, cats are like magical this way. They find your knitting, doesn't matter where you put it. Like, I keep some of my knitting on top of the piano that we have, because I'm thinking it's like a no zone. Yesterday, I'm walking in and I see my cat Tingles sleeping on top of my knitting, on top of the piano, like very angelic.
They love it. So I it's my own fault for not putting that in the project bag or putting it away or putting it somewhere, you know, my own fault. But I find it very rewarding to go do a pattern like that and learn those new techniques and understand the construction. But I also really enjoy this easy sweater I'm doing right now because I can watch a movie or I can, you know, take it with me and visit with the family or whatever.
Well, let's talk about that beautiful cabinet behind you. Tell me about your yarn journey. Like, what's your yarn stash looks now versus like 10 years ago?
Oh, well, it's, you know, it's an obsession. Like you have a similar cabinet behind you. I think sometimes 10 years ago, you know, when my kids were younger and that was more of an issue, both as far as income and, you know, my yarn budget, what I was willing to spend is, you know, when you get older and you have a little bit more discretionary income, you're willing to spend a little more for that special hand dyed, you know, skein of sock yarn that maybe costs more than the Knit Picks stuff. And I'm not dogging Knit Picks, don't get me wrong, because they have some very nice yarn, but it's not the independent dyer yarn that has all those memories, you know, from that maybe you found on a vacation. I think my stash now is different because I'm more discerning. I've learned a little more about what I prefer to work with. I don't particularly like acrylic yarn for lots of different reasons. I don't think it's environmentally friendly. People will argue that it's good for baby stuff, but I don't think it is, because yes, it's machine washable, but it's not flame retardant in the same way that wool is. It's actually kind of dangerous if acrylic melts like plastic. I don't like how it feels. I just don't like it. I mean, knitting is such an enjoyable experience tactily. There are some acrylic blends that are nice and they're soft and it just depends what it is. But the point is I'm more discerning than I was 10 years ago.
Are you very disciplined at what you're buying? Like, do you have a project in mind when you're buying something? Or do you like, oh my God, it's so pretty, I must have it? Like I don't.
Both. Yeah, that. And I also am in, you know, the Sock Yarn subscription mystery club. So I don't know what I'm getting every month. And that's from A Girl and Her Wool. And that's a lot of fun because it comes in the mail and it's things that maybe I would never have purchased for myself. But then I'm like, ooh, that's nice. That looks really good.
You know, another favorite video of yours that I like absolutely loved and actually watched a few times was what to do with all those tiny leftover balls from different projects, because this is like my favorite kind of projects. And I know that you had Emma and Brian on your channel for a few episodes. Actually, you did the whole like December with her. Yeah. And she's like one of my favorite designers in this respect, because she does so many like using multiple colors, like leftovers from other projects and mini skeins and things like that.
And like leftovers, aren't they cute? Leftovers. And I keep all my little sock yarn leftovers because also they're really good for fixing and darning, you know, when your socks blow a hole and maybe you still have that same yarn to fix it with, you know. So
well, tell me about like all those ideas, right? Like you mentioned your little journal where you write where you stop in the work in progress.
Yeah.
When the ideas come to mind about like what you should talk about to your audience, or like what videos would be cool to make, or some other creative ways to use yours, like the little leftovers or something, do you write them down? Do you like, are you good? Is your head good about keeping all those ideas, or you write everything down?
Yeah, I have to write stuff down because I'll think of it. And if I don't write it down, or even like if I'm outside working on the farm or I'm outside somewhere, I have to even just make a voice memo on my phone or write a note somewhere because I will totally forget. And I'll be like, oh, dang, I had such a great idea. What was that? Yeah, happens all the time.
Well, I mean, as a like more experienced YouTuber than I am, and I feel like half of the world is more experienced YouTubers than I am.
And that's how I feel too.
Right. Do you have any tips? Like if people thinking about starting their YouTube channel, do you have any tips, any advice like for the people who are thinking about
it? I mean, I feel like I should have a larger subscribership than I currently do for the amount of time I've done it. And so I'm still trying to work this out also. But the biggest thing I can tell you is be consistent. If you're going to upload a video once a week, then do it once a week. If you're going to do it twice a week, then that's fine. If it's only once a month, that's okay too, but be consistent. That is the biggest thing I've learned, because then your viewership knows that they can count on, oh, something's going to be out on, Tuesday this week or Wednesday or whatever it is. Now, sometimes things need to change. That's okay. Sometimes it needs to be every other week. That's okay. But tell people that, or put that on your banner, on your YouTube channel graphic thing, whatever that is. But consistency is key, whether you're talking about Instagram or any social media. Don't you think that's true?
Right. And I think it's also like, it's that, but it's also the fact that it's never good time to start. You're never ready. You just have to like jump.
You just gotta jump in. And we're back again to that thing where you have to just do you and don't care what other people think, because you will find people that like you will find you. And if they don't, that's okay, because they're not your people. If they don't like you,
like, yeah, that's true also. Like it just happened to me this month, because I was doing a special Pride Month episode, and I invited a bunch of my friends who came back to my channel, and we talked about how they celebrate Pride. And as soon as I posted that video, I had a mass exodus of subscribers and followers on Instagram. And at first I was like, oh my God. And then I thought, well, those are not my people. Like my people would stick with me, my people would find me.
Right. And if you have people that don't appreciate that content, no matter what it is, and it's not in line with your values, you don't want them to stick around, because they're going to be a thorn in your side. And that's why people talk about building your email list too. If you have people that unsubscribe, okay, your email list is becoming more healthy, because the people that don't want to be there are going. And that's okay. It's okay to not be pleasing everybody all the time. It's all right. But I think as women, we want to please everybody all the time, right?
I mean, I think YouTube in general, it's tough this way. It's almost like you have to be very resilient not to get under the pressure of YouTube or Instagram or Facebook algorithm. You have to like remind yourself why you started doing it in the first place. Like what was the idea and why you're here,
Yeah.
And it's not to play games with YouTube algorithm. I mean, if it cooperates, it's great. If it doesn't, you're still doing your thing.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of coaches out there and people that have programs of, how to grow your channel. And some of that's very valuable information if you choose to take the time to do that. I'm not saying it's not valuable, because it totally is. If you find the person that clicks with you and has that information that's valuable and that works with your style and your channel. But it is not easy. It is just consistency. And I think the biggest tip I have, if anybody wants to do this, and you would agree, I'm sure, is just be authentic, be yourself. You can't, especially when I do live events, I do retreats and classes in person. You just got to be who you are, no matter what platform it is. And if people want to go, then okay, that's fine.
Tell me more about the retreat. Like, tell me how that's happening. Like, what's the...
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is I can't be one person on YouTube and then show up to a live event and then be like the real me. And then people be like, who's that? You just got to be authentic is the point. So this ties in because I noticed that one of my most viewed video series has to do with socks. I thought, okay, this year's retreat, this year's live event is going to be all about socks. Because that's what people clearly want to know. That's what people are watching the most of on my channel. And so we all meet together in Ogden, Utah, September 29th through October 2nd is what the dates are this year. I'll send you the link to my landing page, my registration page. And we have a weekend together where we have classes, we have some free time, we have a yarn store party. That's a lot of fun. And, we just have a good time, and we have a lot of free time to just sit and knit together and just visit and have questions answered about the content that I'm teaching. And then we have some other activities too. And Ogden, Utah, downtown is a lot of fun. There's a trolley, it's like public transportation is like this little trolley bus thing that drives around. The hotel is fantastic. It's only half a mile from the yarn store. So we walk over there, or you can take the trolley. And you have a lot of time to just sit with other knitters and relax. So it's a retreat in that sense, but there's also workshop content where you can learn stuff. So,
well, who are the people that come there? Like, are they the regulars? Do they come every year, or do you get new crowd all the time?
Both. That's what's been a lot of fun. Is the first year I did it, I of course was super terrified. I mean, I thought I was going to throw up before the first day. I was really scared. And then the second year, some of the same people came back, and I'm like, and a lot of these people are my patrons. So like, they know they're my people, right? They're not random people. And that's the thing about doing a live event after you've been on YouTube, is that if you're authentic, people know what they're going to get. I mean, if they're going to spend money to travel, to visit, and to come to your event, they have likely watched a bunch of your videos and they know how you teach, and like, it's fine, right? They know what they're getting with me. They know what they're getting. Yeah. So it's both. Like this year, I have a lot of people coming back that are return attendees that I recognize, that I know, that I'll give them a big hug when I see them. But then I have new people coming too. So that's always fun.
Well, tell me how COVID affected your life, your channel, all of that.
Well, the first retreat I did was in the fall of 2019. So that was all fine. That was pre-pandemic.
Right.
The second year, in the fall of 2020, I didn't have it. I had an event online. So we did it on Zoom, and it was okay, but it was fun, but it was certainly not the same. Obviously, it's not the same, but it was still a good time. And then we did do it last year. We went ahead and did it last year with precautions, and the hotel had they were careful and precautions, and we all wore masks, and, it was a classroom setting, but we all had our own tables that were large tables. So you were spaced out. And then I asked that people wear masks during our classroom sessions. And then we spent some time outside as well. And that's probably what, it'll be a similar situation this year, depending on how things are and what the numbers are, yeah.
To look back at when you started that first video on your YouTube, I mean, what's that journey like?
I try not to look at those because I'm like, well, that was awkward. I mean, I don't want to take them down. I don't want to take the videos down, but wow. But in 5 years, I'll look back on some of these videos and probably feel the same way. But it's a process, it's an evolution. And I think you have to be kind to yourself, because you only know what you know at the time, and you're always growing and learning what better lighting looks like. And, some of those early videos, I'm like, wow, that's horrible.
How about interviews? Like, what did you learn from your interviews?
Oh, I don't know. I think I do interviews really similarly to how I did then. However, I think what I've learned is to encourage other people to be authentic, and that it's fine to be informal, that it's not, a big, I mean, this isn't a news channel where everything's very professional and very sterile and very, you know what I mean? It's okay to tell a funny story. It's okay to be relaxed. It's okay not to dress up. It's okay to just be who you are, right?
So what's the dream for Purl Together for the next 5 years? Do you have a vision of it? Do you know where you want to take this channel?
Well, I do, but I'm not sure quite yet how to get there. I mean, ideally, I would love to be able to have the channel grow and to, hit that 100,000 subscriber mark.
So please, go and subscribe to Purl Together. Yeah.
And go subscribe to Fiberchats. Do it. And obviously that would be fantastic. I really do enjoy the in-person events also. I'm truly an introvert, and I know that people are surprised by that. You might be too. And people say, well, how can you be on YouTube? But the thing is, you're talking to yourself. You don't have, 20 people in front of you. And I do enjoy those in-person events. I find them really uplifting, and I enjoy meeting other knitters, and I think it's fantastic, but it's exhausting. It is. And I got to have a break, but but then I want to do it again because it's fun, but then I got to have a break.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what I absolutely love about your channel. I feel like the fact that you're doing multiple things, you're doing different things, you're mixing and matching them. It's sort of like, I appreciate that because I feel like I'm wandering with you, like, and I'm seeing like what I can do with my channel and what I can learn from you. So it's,
thank you.
And I really appreciate your effort at building community, because everything on your channel breathed this community building, like from the knit alongs to the interviews, all of that. And I think it's like absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. And that's my goal, is to build that bigger community, because I think that that's what I enjoy about the in-person events, is meeting the people that you see in the groups or that comment on your channel or that become a patron, and actually hanging out with them and sitting, having a cup of coffee and having breakfast with them. And because those are the people that have supported me all this time. And it's just really heartwarming to actually meet them in person, and I love those in-person events for that reason. But I also really love, even when people can't come to an event or to the retreat, we have, for the patrons, we have knit nights. And so it's a Zoom thing, and there might be 20 people, and it's a blast to just hang out on a Thursday night and knit with them. And what's going on with you this week, and we just chat, and it goes for several hours.
Right.
And it's fun.
Well, I'm so glad you became part of my channel as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been delightful, and it's been interesting and a lot of fun to meet you and, look at your channel and your interviews, because I think that there's room for everybody and we can learn from each other. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Jenna. Thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you.